Let's talk a little bit about channel marketing, or how products actually get to consumers. A marketing channel is the individuals and firms involved in the process of making a product or service available for use or consumption by consumers or individual users. So what we're actually talking about here is the value chain itself. If you get a piece of scrap paper or a whiteboard function on your tablet, jot down a little bit of a process in just what you think about when you think how Coca-Cola and Pepsi and SodaStream, which was bought by Pepsi in 2018, each make their product, which is soft drinks, or their core product, which is soft drinks, available for consumption. Now, there are different ways that we consume these things, right? We may consume a bottle or a can. We may consume a cup of it at a McDonald's or some other restaurant from the fountain. Or in the instance of SodaStream, we make the product ourselves. So think about how, from raw materials to the consumer, the products actually get available for consumer use. Well, here we have Coca-Cola, which has its raw materials, which is water, sugar, or high fructose corn syrup, or cane sugar, depending on. It has color dyes, and it has CO2, carbonation, because obviously we want to have a fizzy soda. All of that gets sent to a bottling plant, which has the aluminum or the glass or the plastic to make the container. It has label materials for the packaging, maybe cardboard for a multi-pack. That ultimately is the final product, and that final product gets sent to distributors. To those distributors with their logistics then send it to customers such as wholesalers, retailers, sometimes vending machines, and then that makes its way to the consumers who are buying from them. Now, we also know that sometimes we have a fountain drink at a restaurant. Oftentimes what happens there is that the sweetener agent, such as sugar or corn syrup or whatever it is, and the dyes are all sent to the restaurants, who use their own water and then contract out with a vendor for carbonation to be able to put it all together in the fountain for consumer use. One difference here between the Coca-Cola channel and the Pepsi channel is that Coca-Cola is responsible for its raw materials, but not the bottling plant. It doesn't actually own its own bottling plants. However, Pepsi does, and that's one thing and one key strategic way that the two companies actually differ. Now, SodaStream is a little bit different. The raw materials, such as sugar, the dyes, all of those are sent and packaged in their own way. You have carbon dioxide, which is put into metal canisters. The plastic and metal parts are put together and assembled in a manufacturing plant, boxed up with the CO2 canisters, and ultimately shipped to other customers such as wholesalers or direct to retailers or so on. Consumers buy them from those retailers ultimately, and then the finished product is actually created on your countertop. So very different in the way that SodaStream products actually make their way, as opposed to restaurant fountain-based soda products, as opposed to bottles or cans of soda products. Talking about channels of distribution, a channel of distribution is the combination of institutions through which a seller markets products to the user or ultimate consumer. This can be done either directly without the use of intermediaries, or indirectly with one or more intermediaries involved. So it would seem kind of intuitive that you would just sell a product direct to consumer. No. Why then would a company use intermediaries? Well, intermediaries actually serve a variety of different values, which is to say, they can be transactional and offer transactional value. They can help facilitate the purchase of and sales of products. They can help to make things more convenient for customers. They can also be logistical. They can help with customs and import fees and not have to worry about those things themselves. Those are all costs that intermediaries may bear, and they specialize in those things so that way they can help other elements in the value chain reduce their own costs. So, for example, we have 5 pairs of jeans brands here: Levi's, Calvin Klein, Nautica, DKNY, and Guess. Each of those 5 brands of jeans, were they to market to 4 consumers directly, it would essentially have a transaction cost of 20 transactions, right? 5 times 4. Now, with an intermediary like a retailer, such as Macy's, Levi's, Calvin Klein, Nautica, DKNY, and Guess only have to market directly and use the resources of Macy's one time each 5 times, and then Macy's then markets directly to the consumer 4 times. So now instead of 20 transactions, we have 9 transactions, making the marketplace a little bit less complicated. So intermediaries do serve a function, and there are different ways that channel structures are set up to include intermediaries. So we have direct-to-consumer channel models, we have retailer-based models, we have wholesale or distributor-based models, and agent-broker models that oftentimes help, again, with customs and import fees. In multi-channel marketing, what a company is doing is trying to reach multiple segments by offering their products in a variety of different ways and getting their products to consumers in a variety of different ways. This sometimes helps to increase sales and market coverage, but it does have its potential for vertical and or horizontal channel conflict, and that is often managed by what they call channel captains. Now, what does this mean, horizontal or vertical channel conflict? Well, let's start with 2 consumer segments. Consumer segment number 1 is very much online. They might be a younger demographic. They might be browsing on TikTok or Instagram, checking email to get any 10% off coupons that might arrive in their email box from Levi's jeans. And then there's consumer segment 2, which likes to browse the mall, which likes to go see the products in person, and ultimately is not as much and not as comfortable with using e-commerce. So they may shop in a mall and then look at Nordstrom's in the mall. They may look at Macy's in the mall before making their purchase. Well, each of those appeals to its own market segment, thus increasing the potential for Levi's sales. However, it's possible that people in consumer segment number 2 who are older and less comfortable are really in need of those new pair of jeans because they've already worn a hole in their old one, don't like having jeans with holes in them, and they've gotten an email for 10% off a pair of new jeans. And so now you've got where they're not going to necessarily be shopping at Macy's or Nordstrom because they have already been directly marketed to, and that's had already its own impact on them. And vice versa. So channel captains help to manage the conflict that arises either across channels or within the channel itself. Different strategies are in play in terms of designing where and what the channel structure might be and how distribution might occur. So, for example, the stage in the product life cycle may dictate whether their product is either all over the place and saturating a market, what we call intensive distribution, or on the very opposite extreme, exclusively distributing. Oftentimes, this is used for luxury products that we are looking to create scarcity with. It may depend on the target market coverage, where the target market shops, where the target market has access to. It may depend on the buyer requirements in terms of convenience. So again, intermediaries help to facilitate some of these functions as well. There are 2 broad types of channel strategies. The conventional channel system, where a producer works with a wholesaler, retailer to consumer, which we mentioned on a previous slide. But there are also vertical marketing systems where the producer, wholesaler, and retailer might be all wrapped up into one type of contract or type of marketing organization or so forth before reaching the consumer. The 3 different types of vertical marketing systems we'll leave before we go are corporate VMS, corporate vertical marketing systems, where production and distribution are under a single ownership. So a company like Old Navy, for example, is responsible for all of the things ultimately in the supply chain, in the value chain, before it reaches the consumer. Administered vertical marketing systems are where production and distribution are largely managed by dominant channel members. So, for example, a company like Walmart helps to facilitate the production and distribution of its goods from major companies such as Procter and Gamble or Unilever or Apple or Samsung in their electronics department. And therefore, they are working and coordinating the distribution and supply chains for those larger companies as well. They're helping to administer part of the value chain. And the third vertical marketing system is contractual VMS. And this is when production and distribution occur among channel members through contracts. So the most common example of this is a franchise model, where a franchisor can help a franchisee to be able to own their own business and set it up, and they pay a fee to be able to do so. These are independently owned from the corporate itself. One example of this might be Dunkin' Donuts, and all the Dunkin' Donuts are franchise-based model, and that is in contrast with Starbucks, who actually owns most of its own stores, with the exceptions of the ones that are licensed. So why would we otherwise create a different type of vertical marketing system? Depends on the type of industry we're in, depends on the type of distribution we're looking for, depends on the stage of the product life cycle. All of these considerations lead us to consider the way that we strategize the distribution channels for getting products and services to customers.